welcome to the Muslim Street. I don't care where you live in the world, you got a Muslim street. Welcome to the Muslim Street. I don't care where you live in the world, you've got a Muslim street. And we're glad you're here. We just want you to compare ours with yours and just do your thing here because there's a Muslim street in every city in the world. And we're glad you're with us this morning. Have you ever been in a war zone? That's the question. Have you ever been in a war zone with incoming missiles slamming into your neighborhood, bombs falling, bullets flying? Have you ever been in a war zone yourself? Think about it. You know, Malik, have you ever been in a war zone?
The closest
Chicago.
Chicago is very peaceful. I don't know what he's
Yeah,
hey, listen, I don't know where these people get this stuff from.
That's about as much as you get.
I just left Chicago.
I beg your pardon. Yeah.
I just left Chicago, and nobody even looked at me with a side eye. What are you talking about?
See, but I'm just saying, but if you were in Iran right now, and you on the receiving end of this nonsense that Donald Trump and Hegseth and the rest of the U.S. is handing out, it's a whole different story. But that's what I want to talk to people about because, if you've ever been in a war zone, and as close as I ever came, I was in South Africa. There was a bomb that went off a couple of blocks from the Johannesburg hotel where I was staying, and the windows contorted like it was crazy. It was like, boom, it was like, what the hell? It sounded like an earthquake, and you knew it was fire though because that was what was going on at the time. But it was serious, and but hardly anybody in the hotel even moved. They didn't like jump up and start running to doors and windows and that kind of stuff. They took it as business as usual. That was where they were. They knew there was a revolution going on, and they had to respond cautiously. And in fact, what they would do is they'd look around and see who was jumping up and running, because usually people jumping up and running had something to do with the bomb. So you have to be careful. Huh?
Yeah, the closest I've been, and you listen to the Muslim Street, you can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com.
There we go.
The closest I've been to a war zone was in 2011, and this is the beginning of the takedown by the Obama administration of Muammar Gaddafi and the Libyan El Jamahiriya. Earlier that year, I noticed I was on my way. I was in African Maghreb for about a month, and this was like February, March timeframe. This assassination came later that fall, the overthrow a lot earlier than that. And on my way to with my host, it's still dark outside. It's dawn. Fajr prayer. We walk into the mosque, just a few blocks. And I look up into the sky art, and I see this what appears to me like just a beautiful star. And I'm just talking, and I tell my host, look up to the sky. I said, "What a beautiful star!" In Arabic, I said, "Naim." He's like, he said, "Drone."
Okay.
American drones were already flying doing their surveillance, and within a week, the bombs were already falling. I was still in the African Maghreb, not in Libya, part of the African Maghreb, but the African Maghreb nevertheless.
Yeah, well, we want to make sure that people understand the severity of being in a war zone, because we don't get it. What if you in the U.S., you in the diaspora, anywhere else other than being in Iran or being in Sudan or in Somalia and Africa, because it's all the same thing in those areas. We just hear about what's coming out of Iran. But if you're anywhere else in the world, what if bombs started falling on your neighborhood? What if your bombs started falling on your neighborhood in New York or Detroit or Chicago or LA? How would that change the complexion of what's going on right now? If bombs and hypersonic missiles were slamming into your neighborhood. And, we have to think about that, because if we don't, we're missing what the people in Iran have to deal with every day. And why should they have to deal with it every day in Gaza, and we not have to deal with it here? We want to ask that question. And how would you react? How would you expect the military and the country to react? How would they react and respond to that kind of stuff? You
And
got
these are great questions. These are great questions, and I'm sure if you've asked that of people whom I have, heard the drumbeats of war from CNN and Fox News and MSNBC over here, and go, and they have encapsulized their enemy to be the enemy of the Western state who is sponsoring the war and carrying out the war and killing innocent people. And I've asked this question to them. I mean, I had one friend, relative, or whatever. I asked a question. I was like, imagine if on the south side of Chicago, in that bungalow house that you grew up in, that you couldn't go outside of that house inside of a curfew that's, oh, by the way, is from sunup to sundown. And you couldn't go out 6 meters to the center, 6 meters to the left, or 6 meters to the right. That was your existence. On top of that, there were tanks coming down the street constantly and surveilling the entire neighborhood. On a daily basis, then how would you feel? Because this is exactly what's going on in these war zones that are perpetuated by the United States government.
Exactly, and you got 13 straight days of bombing. This is the first day in the last 14, 15 days there has been a cessation of bombing and drone attacks and military attacks and Tomahawk missiles hitting various places throughout Iran. It's the first night of that. And, we, again, want to know how you would feel about it. We got some comments coming in, and I wanted to see if we could respond to some of those. And if you could, my glasses are, I ain't using them.
Yeah, and here's something else to consider. I heard Linda Sarsour, who is a Palestinian activist in this country. She said, in relationship, and I'm paraphrasing her, she said in relationship to the oppression and destabilization of the Palestinian people since 1948 and the Nakba to the current. Let's just deal with the current. Here you have, in the year 2000, ahead of the last Intifada, this onslaught of Israeli murder and slaughter of the Palestinian people. The babies that survived that are now 25 years old, 26 years old. Okay. Who do you think they are? You've killed their mothers. You killed their father. You killed their uncles, their grandfather, and their grandmother. Yeah. Now he's 25 years old. Are you going to ask him to come to accept what's going on? No chance whatsoever would that happen. You have literally created a very enemy for life, rightfully so.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, Iran has gone through a revolution. People don't know what a revolution is, and they don't understand the severity of the change that's taken place in Iran and how they have, since 1979, since that revolution, when Ayatollah Khomeini came back from Europe and was welcomed, and the Shah ran out the back door and his wife scuttled out without her high heels. They got out of there, and this was a revolution. They came in, they sacked the American embassy, took it over. They called it a den and a nest of spies, where the U.S. was operating essentially their own facility. They were running Iran out of the American embassy. They were printing money. Malik, do you remember they had plates and they had a printing press to print $100 bills in Iran? The only time any U.S. government treasury plates had been outside of the U.S. was in Tehran, and it was done while the Shah was in power. They could print their own money. That's how much money the Shah had. That's how much of a good thing the U.S. had, printing money, selling oil, doing what they were doing, petrodollars, gone crazy, and they were really loving that. Well, The revolution turned all of that over. As Malcolm said, revolution is a complete transformation and an overturning of the societal structure as it exists. It becomes completely changed. That's what revolution is. In fact, Malcolm said people use that word. He said, don't use that word. Don't use revolution. Don't use that word unless you mean it, because it's not a word to play with. And people who even hear that don't assume that things are going to be business as usual or it's going to be fun. The revolution in Iran turned over everything. And what you have in Iran is a layered revolution that has so deep layers. If you decapitate the regime, as you just mentioned, Malik, and what Donald Trump and Netanyahu thought they were going to be able to get away with in the first day, there's just another layer right below the leadership that is already prepared to take over. This was a revolution. You don't understand a revolution if you think that it's like an election. It wasn't a new party just came in. This was the people taking over everything. They took over everything. And that's what we misunderstand and we misperceive in the US, especially people who are younger. They don't understand the dynamics of a revolution. A revolution is why Iran so quickly stood up and the people rallied in the streets by the tens of millions to support their government, their structure, their institution. You've seen a few revolutions, Malik.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even go back to the Iranian Revolution. When Ayatollah Khomeini came to power in 1979, and it was the end of the Shah. At the end of that, in the mid 1970s, as they approached the end of the Shah's rule, which was a neo-colonial rule, mm-hmm. Even he becomes worried. In his conscience, he says that I think there is a government that's in the Middle East. He knows why he's being used, right? I think there's a government entity in the Middle East that has too much power. They control the media. They control the banks. They control the U.S. Congress. This is literally what he said after he's just been used for 2 decades, right? So even the neo-colonialists know, and they will begin to communicate to the people eventually. This is true revolution when that happens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, Donald Trump is warning every day he's going to hit Iranian infrastructure. He's going to hit bridges. He's going to hit highways. He's already hit schools, hospitals in Iran. Essentially, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, this is called the Zionization of culture and the changing of how warfare is conducted throughout the world now. When you see people wanting to destroy hospitals and schools, and they want to destroy infrastructure, things that really will help and essentially that are there to help, but these things are going to be destroyed because they want to hurt the people, the public. They want to savagely make the public suffer. That is the Zionization of warfare. Nobody has done that in the world better than the Zionists have done. I don't think the Hitlerian days or even the bombing of Dresden was as severe as what we saw in Gaza. That was horrible. That was, look at Gaza now. It's just rubble. But the complete destruction, the complete devastation, they're saying, we're going to kill everything. We're going to kill the dogs. We're going to kill the rats. We're going to kill nothing is going to be able to live in Gaza when we get through. That is the Zionization. That is a tactic that is unique and is new. Write that word down, use it. It's the Zionization of warfare and of the culture. And we've got to get prepared and understand the severity of what this situation entails and how it's going to impact particularly people on the African continent, because they're essentially next. They talk about, well, Turkey's next, Cuba's next, Africa's next. Anywhere they can take this Zionization, they're going to do this, and they're going to overturn existing cultures. They're going to try and dominate, seize as much land as possible, and move throughout the world like locusts.
The layers and layers and layers of the construct of white power and white supremacy, it will not be overturned by democratic power politics. Once we understand, this whole maze, you listen to the Muslim Street at www.themuslimstreet.com. I am Malik Aziz, and I'm here with my co-host, Art Mobley. Art is the National Association of Black Journalists, a founding member, also a member of the Dow 423, an organization that was founded in 2007 on the banks of the Nile River outside of Khartoum in Sudan. Really, Art, to bring about the type of clarification to the confusion that the masses of our people engage themselves in and are flooded with on a daily basis, specifically under Western media control.
Yeah. Iran is a 5,000-year-old Persian culture. They've never been conquered. And Donald Trump and his gang of thugs, deranged thugs at that, feel that they can take over this culture and go in and invade this culture and make this culture essentially do what they want this culture to do. And they've definitely got another thing coming. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, on that point about Iran, even by the measure of white geopolitics and their strategists and their scientists, they've already said Iran has defeated the United States. One big piece of that is the defeat of the Fifth Fleet, which was housed in Bahrain, totally destroyed. And when you see, and it's the Fifth Fleet that was the anchor, Art, of the entire Neo-Colonialist project, which is the subject of the show.
Yep.
To control the Middle East for the West. The Fifth Fleet is gone. All right. There's reports coming out of Oman and Qatar that business is down 60-70%. We talked last week about Dubai is finished. It was built upon a Western tourist economy. They have now shifted. The same people who built that, which were the Zionists and these fake Arabs over there, under Sheikh Mohammed, the Emiratis. And oh, by the way, don't confuse these people with the lineage and the people of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last of the messengers of Allah. Don't confuse these people with that. Get out of your mind these corner grocery stores that's in the black communities and it look like little bodegas and saying that these are the people of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have no kinship to him whatsoever. None. Physically, genetically, culturally, nothing. Zero. Anyway, well, the last point I want to make, Art, is that the Zionists who were entwined in the Emirates, the UAE, they have now. We already saw the financing of the genocide that took place and is taking place in Sudan. That was them. We said it was them in 2007, and we were yelled down by even the military structures in the United States. But we've gotten calls over the last month that they've moved into the African Maghreb. They're trying to take Tangiers and Marrakesh. They're trying to take Kenya. They've already moved to their next strategy.
Absolutely, because they know that they have to leave that area. Essentially, Israel, as it is bordered today within Palestine, is going to be gone. And we predicted this right here on the Muslim Street months ago. We told you this was going to happen. But people have, have that, short short attention span, So you gotta get with the Muslim street and understand what is truly going on, because you're not going to hear the inside scoop and the inside dope about what is going on among the Muslim, the Pan-African communities, the Black community right here in America, and how they overlap and infuse and support each other. You have to understand that to understand what's getting ready to happen. Don't listen to the news and don't listen to the pundits and the podcasters, because they have very little understanding and appreciation for what's going on. I see I'm frozen here a little bit, but I want to say hi to Diane and a couple of other people who are checking in with us, and we want you to feel free to call with your questions, your likes, your invites, and your follows and your shares. We want you to follow and share the Muslim Street so that people become as aware of the Muslim Street as they are of anything else that is on the internet, any place else, because you need to be at this spot. And we're going to be expanding. We're going to bring the great interviews. I mean, we had the Palestinian community on last week, and actually the week before as well. And we have to be in touch with ourselves and with our people. So,
yeah, it's a great article that has just disseminated on the Muslim Street a few days ago by Darob bin Wahad. And as you know, the title of the article is The Black Political Class and the Zionist Control. Darob bin Wahad, who is formerly of what was termed in the early 1970s as the Panther 21. Member of the Black Liberation Army, struggled right next to Assata Shakur, Sundiata Kohli, Jalil Muttaqin, all political prisoners. He is still with us, sometimes in Ghana. Lance, we've had Daroba on before. But go there, www.themuslimstreet.com, pull down his article, like and share it. This is one of our foremost political strategists that we have left. And we only have a few left, I'm going to be honest with you, who can really deliver a true theoretical analysis on the Black liberation struggle, Pan-Africanism, and where we are as Black people vis-a-vis the rest of the world. Omali Yeshatella, Uhuru is another. But this class is dwindling. We do have some other scholars, people like we have to mention and call out Dr. Jared Ball, Morgan State University, also Kofi Tahaka, who is down in Houston, Texas, chairman of the National Black United Front. These are some of the remaining soldiers, but this class is shrinking.
Absolutely, and but at the same time, it's expanding in regards to what is happening in Africa, the new voices that we're hearing from Africa, new young voices there, and they're quickly studying. I really like what young people in this country are doing. They are studying because of their exposure through the internet and their proximity to the information. They have access to the information, Malik, and I think that they are really bearing down and really studying what is going on. I wanted to just shift and talk about internationally what we have to deal with in terms of China's position in not only Africa, but also in what is happening in Iran. Everyone is watching what's going on, and they notice that this is a reset, so to speak, of the petrodollar and its ability to impact the international economy and the markets. And so the global south is preparing to come out with their own currency. China, India, South Africa, Brazil, those countries that are part of the BRICS countries are forced to move in a different direction, get away from the petrodollar, the US dollar, but also at the same time, they're trying not to be represented by the Chinese yuan. And so they are going to come up with a more neutral dollar, going to be gold back currency. And that currency, I again project, will be available to banks and bankers and people like you and I in the next couple of months. That will be completely available, and we'll have a new place to market our use of currency around the world. The Chinese have they have the largest standing army in the world. They have 1.4. Anytime anybody has a standing army of over 1 million troops, that's a lot of troops.
And one other thing that they have that's has been an advantage over the decade over decade, that is, they haven't been involved in any wars. They haven't wasted.
So their powder's dry.
Yes. But no, what I'm saying is, their stockpile is full. So. Yes. This is the quest. One of the things I want to mention while we have Art on Frozen, we are produced out of Ghana, Accra, Ghana, by the Lance Scurv Show. And Lance, if you could kind of address, we do have Art, looking good while he's frozen, but he's frozen to the left. Art, if you want to climb out and climb back in, I'll make a few announcements.
Is that what I should do?
Yeah, climb out, climb back in. I'll make a few announcements to kind of hold here. Also, we want to encourage the audience to present any questions in the chat, and we'll bring those across. Also, Lance, if you want to pop in for a second, the Muslim Street, and this is one of the things away from what we're talking about here today, and we'll get back to it when Art pops back in.
Yes.
The Muslim Street is going to create in the upcoming months the Muslim Street sports podcast or a sports talk podcast. We want to be involved in the social commentary that's going on in the sports world. Kind of like a little fun thing. So we'll be, if you have anybody in the listening audience who wants to get involved with the Muslim Street Sports podcast, we'll be talking about boxing. We'll be talking about soccer/football. We'll be talking about American football, basketball, anything to do with the social commentary around sports. So that we can get involved there. So that's coming up. Please inbox us, leave us a message if you think that you can contribute to the new upcoming podcast series on that. Now, having said that, I think we have Art back live. And Art, just to kind of do a reset for the audience as we talk about currencies, and one of the things that we want to look back and we have to do this is the defeat that the Pan-African struggle took back in 2011, the fall of 2011, with the murder of Muammar Gaddafi, which was also the assassination and the murder of the El Jamahiriya, the blueprint for the United States of Africa.
Yes, and that was an effort that was, oddly enough and surprisingly enough to a lot of people, that was coalesced between Nelson Mandela, Robert Mugabe, and Muammar Gaddafi. All of them are departed and joined the ancestors, but they were vital in their discussions about the Pan-African the Pan-African strategy of economically bringing the continent together. They were in the process of using African gold and Libyan oil to use as the basis of a currency that was to serve all of Africa, and it was the gold dinar. That strategy, I think, should have been talked less about and just implemented. It should have been quietly implemented, although I don't think the outcome would have been a lot different. But we needed to galvanize the African continent under one currency. These leaders saw the need for that and the power of that. And that piece has been lost on the African continent because you don't hear that same kind of discussion and you don't see that same kind of coalescing of activity to recreate or position African people in a way that can move them forward to create that currency. But they can do that, and they ultimately will do that. I think in the Sahel states right now, there is an effort to galvanize not only currencies. They've joined with Niger and Mali and Burkina Faso. They are consolidated as one country, and they seek to expand. They're thinking about including Chad. Guinea's an outside possibility. Senegal, Senegambia, and eventually it will expand and move. But that's what the war in Sudan is about. They fractured Sudan. Darfur 23 went there to try and prevent that fracture,
Yes.
but we were unsuccessful because people in the continent have too much of an opportunistic ideal about what is theirs. They think Sudan belongs to them. They think Uganda belongs to them. They think Mali belongs to them. And the fallacy in that is like, if you've got a child in the house that is stolen away, and they're an heir, they're still an heir, and they're stolen away, but then they went into slavery, they went somewhere else, and they come back. How you gonna leave that person out of the family? How you gonna omit that person from the family and say, oh well, only you weren't here, so we had to go on without you? No, it doesn't work like that. That's not how African culture works. So there are some people though who selfishly feel that if there's $14 trillion worth of gold under Uganda, it belongs to the Ugandan people. No, it belongs to the African people. It belongs to all of us. And we have to understand that Africa is resource rich enough for all of us to pull everybody out of poverty if we understand that dynamic. You just essentially reallocate and redistribute what you find so that it covers all of us. And in doing so, you create a dynamic that lifts everybody at the same time. And you're going to lift them to a supremely higher level because the resources are just so plentiful and they're so dynamic. You don't even have to pull it out of the ground. You could leave $14 trillion in the ground, not disturb a leaf of the ecology and the beauty of that part of Africa, and you can leverage it from in the ground. You can leverage it without moving a stone. So did want to say that. Go ahead.
You froze up again, so
I saw that.
If you can drop back out, drop back in. But I want to ask Lance to jump in here in a few minutes to kind of talk about just some social, cultural connections of Black Americans returning to the African continent, particularly in Ghana, where you are, Lance, on the ground. And for those who don't know, Lance is originally from New York City, I think Harlem, New York. You'll kill me if that's wrong. Are you from Harlem, right?
Right above Harlem. I was born in Washington Heights, right across the street from
Washington Heights.
Yes, which is above Harlem. That's in Manhattan. Put it this way: it's Harlem. It's just a mere name.
Is that where Bumpy Carter had that big apartment? Washington Heights. Bumpy Carter.
Who? I believe so, because he had several spots. But where I was born was right across the street from where Malcolm X was assassinated at the Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, and I lived a few blocks down.
So Art, I wanted Lance to jump in to talk a little bit about where the African diaspora meets the new Pan-African struggle. We have seen a display of the Ghanaian government reaching out to the diaspora, particularly Black Americans, to come back to Africa, to come back to Ghana. There's facilitated dual citizenship, the handing over of land, that type of stuff. Lance, can you kind of set that up a little bit and speak into that? But I want to do it in the context of what we saw. Art, you were a big proponent of 30 years ago with Dr. Sullivan and the stuff that he was doing. In 1991, I was in Accra, Ghana, facilitated by the great Akbar Muhammad to discuss what I thought was a brilliant revolutionary social movement using sports to bring about dual citizenship. And he facilitated some meetings with President Rawlings and General Arnold Quainu that I led the discussion on to pull that together. So the revisiting of that, but kind of set the context of what Dr. Sullivan was doing.
Well, what Dr. Sullivan was doing was basically, from an economic standpoint, working with the African nations, if you will, to try and bring them together. But there's a hopelessness in terms of much of our intelligentsia with the African leadership, that is the political leadership. I'm talking about the politicians, those people who are professional office holders who seem to dominate the dialogue. And they do that a lot with American help. They do that with American money. You'd be surprised, well, maybe you wouldn't, but certainly a lot of people in our audience would be surprised at how much money the U.S. spends in foreign elections. They flood these elections just like AIPAC floods the election here in the U.S. The U.S. is flooding elections around the world, trying to fix who is going to be the leader and the outcome of those elections. And they do that, again, for control purposes. So not that, we don't see through that and that we don't have a fix for that. But what some of the people like Dr. Sullivan were concerned about was how quickly we could fix that. So what do we do in the meantime? And he thought that a grassroots level campaign of raising money, raising awareness, showing people a different side of what the Pan-African community and African Americans in particular could share and demonstrate in Africa. So he invented the micro-lending programs where you did microloans. Microloans were first invented and distributed by Reverend Sullivan, Reverend Sullivan's programs, his entities and his organizations. He also had programs for schools for Africa, doctors for Africa, bankers for Africa, where we were training African people both on the continent to assume and take those jobs and responsibilities and pulling some of them off of the continent so they could be trained in other places around the world. OIC was a job development program that most of the people that grew up in the 60s and 70s are very familiar with. Those were operated in Africa as well. They had job training programs and skills programs that were also in development there. So that was what Reverend Sullivan's campaigns were basically about. He built over 1,000 wells in sub-Saharan Africa, built over 1,000 schools in sub-Saharan Africa. He worked, again, en masse tirelessly to just make some things happen from the bottom up. The idea being that, for example, schools in Africa, 250 million African children at that time, and this wasn't that long ago, we're talking about back in the 90s, had no school that they could attend to. No school was in proximity. So Reverend Sullivan's idea was, let's build a school way in the hell out, away from the cities and the civilization, and let that school then be an instrument of learning where the students actually were. And he built over 1,000 schools in sub-Saharan Africa just on that premise and that basis. And those were great situations and stories behind each school, because we go back a year later and, somebody's built a laundromat next to the school, nothing out there in the beginning. The only thing is a schoolhouse. And then you got a store, and you got a laundromat, and you got somebody's got some petrol sales that they're doing, and so they're selling fuel, and you have the beginning of a little town, a little city. So I thought it was a great methodology and strategy on his part. But again, we talked about what was going on the other end, where Muammar Gaddafi and Mugabe and Mandela were thinking top down and trying to formulate a currency. Now we've got Traoré and Assimi Goïta and the brothers there in the Sahel thinking about military combinations. And that was what I wanted to build on when I mentioned China. And it has a standing army of a million plus soldiers. Nowhere on the planet is there a military that's that large other than the African continent. There are well over a million troops under arms or with armed military on the African continent. And once we get that consolidation is what we really need to be achieving, we'll be there, Malik, and we'll pull those armies together.
Yeah, let me ask you, why you talking about the Chinese? Back in the early part of the century, the Chinese began to make a economic play toward Africa. And I'm only going to call this a play because Africa, coming up out of 40 years prior, coming up out of the European colonialization, and then moving into a neo-colonial position that we saw in the Middle East, and we surely saw it in some strategic places in Africa, particularly with the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah in the early 1960s. Patrice Lumumba is murdered by the CIA in 1961, and of course, the destabilization of the Pan-African, Pan-Arab coalition that was taking place under Mohammed V in Morocco. Now, here come the Chinese in the early 2000s, seeking an economic relationship with Africa, with the African continent. The Africans are smarter this time around, obviously, right? They're not going to enter into any neo-colonialist position as they did with the West post-colonialism. They want to be at the negotiating table as partners. This is critical. This get played up for the West, CIA, and the misinformation bureaus in the West to feed to the African diaspora from the State Department that this relationship, and this is what I saw on the ground in Africa when I was there, that this relationship is no different than the relationship that the Western masters had over post-colonial Africa. That China is simply the new colonial powers vis-a-vis the new economic entities that they're building and infrastructures that they're building on the African continent. What do you say about this?
Well, I look at China, and the first thing that I think of is, when did China take slaves out of Africa?
Never.
When did China establish huge military bases in Africa? Do you know China only has one military facility? It's in Djibouti, and they have a military facility there because the U.S. is there, France is there, England has a detachment there. So China's in Djibouti also, but the U.S. is in every country throughout the continent, in every corner of the continent. France is in half of the continent. Britain's in a third of the continent. They all have military commitments. China doesn't have a military. So how are you going to be a colonialist if you don't have the military to enforce your colonialism? China's not there for colonialism. China doesn't have to be. China goes in, China will make loans where Western capitalists won't, because the Africans have this strange foreign philosophy to the West. You know, Africans believe that no one can own the land. The land belongs to all of us. It came from God. This is how socialist Africans have been forever. And it pisses off Westerners when they go there, because they're like, these Negroes won't sell us no land. You know, they don't want to sell the land. We want to buy it. We want to own it. You know, and Africans said, no, you can't buy the mountain. You can't buy the river.
I had a house in the African Maghreb that I shared with a friend of mine for over 10 years. And of course, I'm over here in lovely Chicago and Florida. And friends here kept asking me, saying, while you're out here, do you rent the place out over there? No, I don't rent it out. Just let my friends use it. They don't understand this concept, bro.
Yeah, they don't. It's like you got to make a buck off of everything, and you got to squeeze every penny. I mean, people don't do this. People are not like you. The whole idea of socialism came from studying African people. African people were socialists before socialism was a word. It's communal. It's family. It's what you might call, and I hate this word, tribal. You know, that we make sure that everybody's taken care of in the neighborhood. You don't just let people starve and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that concept was studied by Marx and Engels when they decided to go all around the world and find out where the best systems were and what was the most ideal system for human endeavor was, you know, and they found it in Africa.
So this is a very important point you bring up. So this, and I'll come back to the other, this integration of the African diaspora. Let's look at Ghana as a case example. In order to make that as smooth as possible, I think it's going to be an ongoing project because of there's some obvious cultural adaptations that African people in the United States have taken from their white slave masters. In particularly, and this is, I like working examples, right? Narratives. I remember Akbar Muhammad had a very sharp assistant back in 1991, 1992 when I spent the winter over in Ghana. We were having a reception at Akbar's house, like a cookout reception for Rita Marley. Rita was there with Stevie and Sadella, the kids, and a few other of the band, and they were there to make Rita a mother of a village. Now, so we had this big reception, the who's who was there. Akbar had invited his assistant to come to the reception. The assistant showed up with 15 members of his family. Akbar was shocked. He was shocked not that it was 15 members, is that he didn't prepare that much food, you know, so it was a struggle to accommodate that. So here's where Black America, you know, meets Africa. Everybody eats in Africa, bro. It's just different. You invite me, the African, to dinner, everybody's coming. And you know how Negroes are here in the United States. You know, you go over their house unannounced, they're gonna hide the food in the they're gonna hide the food in the stove and try to rush you out the door. Lance, if you're listening, please jump in.
Yeah, let me add something in. You could be on the public van, the chochos, the transportation, and somebody whips out some food and starts eating, and they'll turn your way and tap you and say, "You are invited." Strangers, every day, you are invited. They want to give you some of the food.
Yeah.
And we live in a country where the white man has doggy bags. He literally would take half of that steak home instead of giving it to somebody else to eat on, even a homeless person. He'd pass right by him and give it to his dog.
But this is as they're eating the food. If they purchase some food, they open the container, they look around, you are invited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
It is, and and people I found throughout the world, whether it's I've been in Guatemala, been all over Africa, and been in South America, and a few other places. I find the same dynamic. I mean,
my point here, Art, this is going to be a ramp up as this integration of the African diaspora, who has been under the domination of the white man West and his ways, into let's say Accra, Ghana. As a working example, this is a work in progress because what I've been hearing, and Lance could jump in on this. I've been hearing the building of private communities over there, gated communities. Where you get a gated community for? That whole concept comes from the white man.
I've seen it.
Why would you go to Africa and do that?
Because
Black American gated community. Why would you do that?
I don't know. I guess you want to keep the lions and the gorillas out or something. What's wrong with you people?
But I also have to say,
it is. And Dick Gregory used to talk about Black people, African Americans in particular. He said, "Y'all can't go over to Africa." He said, "Y'all too nasty." He said, "Y'all get over there and y'all do all of this freakish stuff." He said, "Ain't nobody doing all that stuff in Africa. You're doing this and you're doing that." And he just said, you got to unlearn a lot of the Western European ways and ideas that have been fed into your brain as being normal, and you have to unlearn that kind of stuff. So again, we all know that the pornography capital of the world is Israel. All of 50% of the pornographic sites that anybody has access to come out of Israel. So, they are the purveyors of this stuff that, is poisoning the Christian world as the world is poisoned and is affected by this. But, certainly it's a source. And we have to understand that is the West. That's what the West purveys. If they can sell it, they'll bottle it and they'll be on the corner trying to market it to kids. That's how they think in this go. They don't care, So we have to unlearn a lot of bad habits. When we go there, we have to be cautious about how we reintegrate into African society, because it's not what you think it is. It's not as devious. And I mean, we all say everybody's kind of thinking about Africans as, scam artists. You got scam artists in Nigeria, I'm the most professional, baddest scam artist in the world, come out of West Africa. But they scam at a level that makes sense. They are deprived. They are wanting to be the Robin Hoods of their community. And they feel like that's the only thing that they have an opportunity to do. So you have to be careful when you're doing business, but you also have to understand that nobody's going to shake you down and rob you on the corner and do some crazy stuff like Bebe and Tyrone and Bodo do in the hood. It's a different thing. It's a different thing.
On this issue of Nigeria and the scam. Remember, I don't know, the interview probably about 30 years ago that Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes did with Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he went down that road of calling Nigeria the most corrupt country on the planet. And Brother Farrakhan gave him a new one on that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about that. Now let's check this out. You still see them talking about this Nigerian scam artist, blah, 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 blah. Did you know that last year, Art, 2025, $10 trillion was stolen from corporate entities around the world vis-a-vis what is called cybersecurity theft, also known as ransomware. Untraceable, transferred in cryptocurrency. Untraceable. So meaning as soon as that button was hit, it's gone. $10 trillion. That's a third of the American national debt, by the way, if you want to put that in context and perspective.
Exactly.
And anybody who doubt that, my other job is a cybersecurity specialist. I'm literally a certified ethical hacker. Go check my LinkedIn. But the biggest piece of that is, Art, a third of America's national debt was stolen. And who are the players in this theft that is going on that took that $10 trillion? And oh, by the way, they're saying that 2026, that number will be more around $14 to $15 trillion. Now listen to this. Here's the final piece of this. If you doubt anything I'm saying, there's a company that was banned under the Biden administration out of Russia called Kaspersky. This was around 2021, 2022. I have friends who work there, actually. They were an international company, a threat company. They put out a threat map that's live, and anybody can pull it down. Just go to Kaspersky.com, and it will show you real time who's stealing from who right now. It's literally of a 3D world map of who's hacking who. You know who's hacking who right now? And when I say who's hacking who, that meaning that they're stealing, all right? Yeah. The Russians are hacking the Americans. The Americans are hacking China. China's hacking France. France hacking the Americans. The Argentinians are hacking. Well, you know where the darkest part of that map is, meaning that there's no activities going on? Africa. Don't take my word for it. Go to Kaspersky.com and educate yourself.
No,
unless I got receipts.
We have never been the ones who have been the international thieves and the world champion thieves. Those are Europeans. Every crooked thing that Africans know about, they got from Europeans and colonizers who were there. They're the ones who have been stealing. We've got to re-educate those people who are heavily influenced by that, whether they be people in the diaspora or people on the continent. We got to do something about that to reorient people. And a lot of it will just naturally fall away because that's not the African culture. That's not the intellect of African people in a natural state.
But I will say this would be a real revolutionary move if we put together our own cyber hackers to go after the West. I mean, this is serious business.
Hey, they'd actually be they'd be damn good, that's for sure, because nobody thinks like Africans do. I mean, there's a brother in Ghana had damn near $1 billion delivered to a tree stump in the middle of nowhere via FedEx.
Yeah. So, bro, all right, as we close out the program, coming up on the last few minutes, you've been listening to The Muslim Street. You can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. If you want to submit articles, we will vet them and post them. Also, like and share, get this message out. We're in our first year of producing this podcast. It's going to scale. We scaled all over the African continent right now. We have over 100,000 listeners there. All right, there's a question from Diane in the comments that I want you to close the program out on. She brings up the topic to Eric, who's also in the comments. And she says that if we don't have unity, if we don't unite, we will not survive. Now, so I want you to address that, and this will be the last word of the show, in the context of what we were doing right before that made the West nervous, and that was immediately post colonization, the Pan-Arab, Pan-African unity that was going on with Sekou Touré, Mohammed V in Morocco, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt.
Sure. Well, Diane is echoing what Maya Angelou said. It's what Dr. Clark said. It's what Malcolm was trying to foster, and so was Marcus Garvey. So she's echoing these people and that spirit. And we appreciate hearing it because that's what the Muslim Street is about. That's what Pan-Africanism means. It means the coming together of all African people throughout the world. The Pan is the world, and African is African, and that's exactly what we need to do. The Chinese did that in China. The Russians did it in Russia. The Japanese have done it. The Indians have done it. The Europeans have done it. Africa is the only people on the world in the world who do not understand the dynamic of consolidation and unity. You have to unify across geographic areas. You have to recombine what you were in the beginning so that you don't live under the shadow of neo-colonialism and are not acting as a colonial puppet because you still think that that's cute. No, it's not cute. You need to get rid of that stuff, get back to our ancestral understanding, and realize that unity is how we're going to win. Absolutely. That is the only way that we're going to win. And if we don't, absolutely right, Diana, we will not survive if we do not unify. So it's imperative, it's existential that we unify the continent. And I know it's moving in that direction. And when it starts to happen, it's going to happen very fast. People are not going to believe how quickly these borders are going to fall away. You know, you got Europeans running around talking about, oh, well, we need to promote xenophobia and the differences between these Africans and these Africans. What? Wait a minute. You people, last I remember, got off of a ship and came ashore and brought your nonsense and your armies, with you. So we have to repel you too. You should be the first people we repel. So get xenophobic against some of these Europeans and get them out of there before you start chasing Africans across the continent because they're trying to just survive. Everybody should be free to go to any African country they want. What if African Americans decided to go back to Africa? Where would we go? Oh, we got to go to this little corner. No, I want to be able to go anywhere I want to go. I don't even know where I came from in the first place. So since I don't, I should be welcome anywhere. That's what all Africans in the diaspora have to feel and have to be made to feel and welcome by people on the continent. They have to understand that. And I know a lot of them do. In fact, most of them do. Every African I talk to thinks like that. But it's this leadership class, it's these politicians who play the games and try to manipulate. But I know we're on time.
Yeah, we're over the time, but thanks for listening to the Muslim Street. Art will be in Kenya sometime over the next 30, 60, 90 days. I'll be in Africa over the next 30, 60, 90 days. We'll produce the Muslim Street from over there. I ain't telling you where I'm going. Okay. But anyhow, I want to thank you for joining us, for Lance Scurv, producing the Muslim Street out of Accra, Ghana. And for Art Mobley, founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists. I am Malik Aziz, editor-in-chief of the Muslim Street. We'll see you next week, same time, same station, next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Again, thanks for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.